Hi, it's Mr. G here, and today we're going to be going over 27.1, defining money by its functions. So a lot of us have dollar bills, everything else in our wallet, purse, whatever it is, but if you think about it, why does it actually allow us to buy items? Why can we go to a store, give them essentially this special piece of paper or polymer or whatever it is, and essentially they will give us a good in return? Why does money have any value? The ability to exchange for a good or service. We can essentially exchange it for a good or service, but why does it have value? And one of the main reasons is that we believe it has value. And we're going to talk a little bit more today about defining money by its actual functions. But let's first look at, or before money, what really existed. So if you think about it, if you didn't have money, what would happen? Well, if you want to have some food, you'd have to, go to a store, and then they would be like, okay, what can you offer us in return? And you'd be like, well, I make this stuff, and they're like, okay, I want some of that, and then you have to negotiate. I'll give you this much food for whatever it is that you're making, baskets or something, and you have an exchange. But what if they don't want the baskets? Well, if they don't want the baskets, then you're not going to be able to make the exchange. So you have to go and find someone then who wants your baskets. He'll trade you for something that the storekeeper then wants, so you can actually go get food. And you can imagine how in a system like ours, where that would get extremely complicated very fast. How would you go on Amazon to order your favorite thing? You'd have to be like putting up your stuff for bidding on, and then they'd have to pay in something you want that you could actually use to buy the stuff, from other people, and then getting things to each other. Our whole system wouldn't work based upon the bartering system. So with the bartering system, you have to have the double coincidence of wants. Both parties have to want what the other party is offering. So one person is offering wheat, one person is offering baskets, whatever it is. They have to want what each other's offering. If not, the whole barter is not going to happen. And so this keeps going and going. And so, of course, this system never really worked too well. Because you would have these problems. And bartering can still take place, even in modern day, that still does happen. But for the primary system, that doesn't necessarily work. So money solves the problem of the barter system. Okay? So what essentially is money? And so when we look at money, what actually determines it as money? First of all, to be money, it has to be a medium of exchange. Okay, it's an intermediary between the buyer and the seller. Okay, so if there's a buyer, there's a seller. Money is essentially that intermediary that allows that transaction to happen. Okay, so before, we had to barter for something. Now it's like, okay, I'll accept money and you'll give me money, etc., etc. So it acts as an intermediary. It's a store of value. It has to hold future value. No one would be like wanting to have money if next week it had no value. It's like everyone would just abandon it. And so confidence is really a key with any kind of money. We have to believe it holds future value. And so that's where a lot of, if you look at digital currencies, etc., some of them, people do believe it'll have future value, but there is no guarantee. It's just some program on the internet and it could go. And in some cases, you have instances of that. And so if people aren't sure about it holding a future value, it can't really be considered money. Of course, money does lose value over time, and we talk about that with inflation, but still, it will have a future value. It has to have a unit of count, valued or measured in this. So like price. If you go into a coffee shop, you go to a Starbucks or something, you look and they give you prices. Everything is listed and a price. How much is this? It's like $4 or $5 for this. It's in a unit of account, and so everything is in relation to that, to the money. It's a standard of deferred payment. People can use it to make purchases now and pay back in the future. People can take out loans now to buy a house and then pay it back in the future. So it has to be a standard for deferred payment. So in order to be considered money, it has to have all of these four different ideas. And you can apply it to other things besides, obviously what the government issues, and see whether it holds up to the test of true money. If we look in the past, things that acted as money were things like gold and silver. Those were often common ideas for money. Cowrie shells were often used. They were some of the earliest forms of money. Essentially, these shells, people would have their prices in shells, and they'd pay with these shells, etc. You even had imitation shells. People would make counterfeit shells at some point. Cigarettes, certain, places, cigarettes are basically, because people wanted them anyway, they hold a value, and they could be actually considered money in how they're being used. Cocoa beans in some areas. So these are just examples of commodity money because they have a value in and of themselves, but they're being used as a money. So you can use it for other kinds of resources, etc. So it's considered commodity money. We used to have commodity-backed currencies where gold or silver backed it. So it's like you could always take a dollar bill or something, go, say, to the bank or wherever, and they would give you the equivalent in gold or silver. And all of our currency used to be backed by it. But of course, it does limit the money supply because, if you want more and more money out there, you need to have more and more gold to basically, to secure against that money. And of course, that very much limited our money supply. So eventually, they, of course, dropped the gold standard, the silver standard. So now if we take a dollar bill and we bring it to the bank, they're not going to give us the equivalent in gold. I mean, we could buy gold with the money. But essentially, it's not backed by gold, okay? And so that's the difference. You can't just exchange it for a guaranteed amount of gold. Gold will shift in price, and you can buy it, okay? Fiat money has no intrinsic value. If you think about our money, it's fiat money. It has no intrinsic value. Why do people want it? Because, their belief in it that it does have value, but in and of itself, it's a paper or, plastic, depending where you're at, or, however it is. It's declared as the legal tender, but people really have confidence and faith in it that they can go out and buy basically the goods and services they need with it. If they lose that confidence, they would lose confidence in the money and it would have no value. So really, that is the important thing with money, and essentially how it keeps its value. And so we're going to be looking at different aspects of money throughout this chapter, how money is created, role of banks, etc., as we try and understand, how the whole money supply, everything else works. All right? So this was 27.1. I'm Mr. G. Bye for now.